Hello, APJ listeners. Thanks for spending so much time with Pastor John and me over the years. We're honored that you're along on this ride of what God has done and continues to do through this podcast. It's bigger than us, and we know that. So thank you for being a part of it. And it's just me today with an update for you about a few new programming changes to be aware of. And the first change coming up is an announcement, actually. It's an exciting one for us here at Desiring God because we're now offering a brand new John Piper Sermon podcast. It launched in mid-April. Likely you already heard about it. It's called Light in Truth. Light in Truth. Be sure to subscribe to the new podcast feed to enjoy sermons from Pastor John's pulpit ministry. Classic sermons, new sermons, 5 days a week, all curated in a new podcast hosted by Dan Kruver. He's doing a great job. It's going to be a great addition to your podcast feed. And with the addition of the new podcast come two changes to Ask Pastor John, this podcast. And the first is that we're going to bring Sermon Clip Curation Wednesdays to an end. So Wednesdays we would play sermon clips. That was a lot of fun. And you sent me tons of great clips over the years. Thank you for your emails. Thank you for sharing those clips with me and sharing your memories too. So many of us have stories about unforgettable moments or seasons of life when a sermon from Pastor John just met us in a moment of need. And you've been sharing that with us on the podcast with those clips. But Sermon Clip Wednesdays will end, and it's going to end in May. So instead of sermon clips, those of you who want to listen to curated John Piper sermons, subscribe to the new Light in Truth podcast. You find it there. And that brings me to change number 2. In removing the Wednesday slot, APJ is moving to 2 times per week. 2 times per week. We'll be publishing now 2 episodes per week on Mondays and on Thursdays. For a number of years now, we've been publishing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, taking the Wednesday slot out, and now we're going to publish new APJs on Mondays and Thursdays. And that change will begin in June. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. It's coming. And I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for supporting us, and for sending us your incredible questions. Keep those coming, which you are. We have no shortage of questions ahead of us. In fact, already we have May and June and all of July and most of August already scheduled out with themes and emails. It's as busy as ever here for us. And Pastor John continues to love investing his time in APJ, which is great. In fact, we're just reviewing his schedule for the next year ahead and his ministry commitments. And he said to us, quote, APJ remains a deeply satisfying investment of effort, and it's probably the hardest thing I do, quote. I know what he's talking about. It's not easy work answering your hard questions, but it's deeply satisfying work. And I love working on this podcast alongside him. And we have much work ahead of us in this second decade of the podcast now. So those are the updates. Subscribe to Light and Truth today. And APJ moves to Mondays and Thursdays in June. I'm your host, Tony Ranke. Thanks for listening to the Ask Pastor John podcast. We'll see you soon.